October's wrap up. Stick around. Hey guys, welcome back to Three Real Books. Thank you very much for following my channel. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. I got about 80-90% of you guys that watch this channel on a regular, but you're not subscribed. So go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe. It really does help the algorithm, and I really appreciate that. All right, so this is just going to be a little bit of a recap. Please excuse my voice. I've been out in the forest hunting. So if you're not familiar with my other works on YouTube, go ahead, check out Three River Blades, Three River Survival, Three River Kydex if you're interested in that. Three River Survival is where I do a lot of my hunting and outdoor activities, and it really is a passion of mine. So I know not everybody's a hunter, or not everybody likes hunting, but I did do a bow hunting trip, and it was fantastic. I didn't actually get any animals, but I did learn a lot, and I did go out there and have a good time, and it's an adventure. So every time I go, I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, so let's get into this. The Lazarus Trilogy. I just did a video on this. If you want, go ahead and take a look at that. The Lazarus Trilogy was something that took me quite a bit of time to read because they are big books, but it's, a trilogy, and it was okay. It was okay. I appreciated it. I know that James Islington from Australia, or he's an Aussie, and he did a good job. And this being his first works, I understand that there was some stuff that was missing, but it has to do a lot with time travel. Magic system was great. And it's just about trying not to. The main protagonist was a really bad dude. And he was trying not to repeat his same mistakes, so he went through all this trouble to ensure that it wouldn't happen again. And there's a whole bunch of things that happen within the trilogy, which is fantastic. So if you're looking for a long trilogy or something that you can kind of get your hooks into, I think it's a decent trilogy. Especially it's only 3 books, but they are long. So if you want to sit down and hunker down for the wintertime, I would recommend the Lazarus Trilogy. Really good book. All right, let's talk about some nonfiction stuff. So if you don't know, I am a firearms instructor, and you'll find some of that stuff over on Three River Survival. I had to read a lot of stuff that has to do with brain science when it comes to shooting. Building Shooters by Dustin Solomon. If you don't know who Dustin Solomon is, he is a naval officer that was handed a program for the United States Navy. Not a Navy SEAL, but he was in charge of all the firearms and marksmanship scores for the Navy, and it was abysmal because most sailors can't shoot, except with the exception of Navy SEALs and maybe some MPs or Master of Arms. All right, so those kind of guys, yeah, okay, no problem. But this has to do with brain science, how your brain works, why it functions the way it does, short-term memory, long-term memory, that kind of thing. And because it was part of my job, I actually really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend it if you are somebody that wants to learn how to shoot better, wants to understand how thinkers or people become better shooters. This is a really good book to start with. Again, he's very wordy, very vocabulistic, if that's a word, but his vocabulary is just off the charts. But again, I didn't read it for that. I read it because I wanted to understand how people process being a better marksman, and this is actually a really good book on that. So I would highly recommend that. All right, I also picked up 2 books from Jordan B. Peterson. This one is The 12 Rules of Life, An Antidote to Chaos, and this is Beyond Order, 12 More Rules of Life. Now, if you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he is essentially a psychologist or a psychiatrist that used to work out of a university. He became very prominent. There was a law that was going around in Canada. He is a Canadian professor that wanted to restrict that people wanted to be called certain pronouns or wanted to be treated a certain way, and they wanted to make that a law. So if I said that I was a cat or a dog, you have to, by law, tell me that I'm a cat or a dog, which is absolutely absurd. So he started a blog, an online presence, and of course now he's blown up to the person he is today. But that being said, these 12 rules of life are basically to sort out your problems, and he goes into stories, and the way he talks is sort of like he has a conversation with himself, if you're not familiar with his works. Very entertaining. He says a lot of great stuff. So if you're somebody that's doubting yourself or doubting your ability to be a functioning human being, this is definitely a decent book. I would read it again, read it twice. Somebody that's failing in life, you definitely want to look at some of this stuff. And then this is his sequel, Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. He goes a little bit more in depth. This one is a little bit slowed down or toned down, just basically a better way of handling the situation. This has to do with sorting your life out. This has to do with balancing your life out, because you can't have all good and no bad, and you can't have all bad and no good, because that's not good either. So this is more of a balancing act, where this is sort your life out first, then balance it. All right, so if you're interested in those two books, I'm going to put all these links down below if you're interested in self-help. All right, indie publishers. This was an indie publication by Dirk Straz, Conquest. It is a historical fantasy. It takes time. It takes precedence, I think, in the 1800s, if I'm correct, with the Spanish conquistadors. They go to this island because they want gold. They find this tribe that's there. They make friends with that tribe, and then they say, well, we don't have the gold here. You have to go into this other location. And then it starts to get fantasy as they go through this veil that's covering the island, and you meet these other creatures and these other peoples, and it gets really weird, which is okay because it is a fantasy book. And all these conquistadors, a lot of them died. There's a lot of turmoil. The lead character, or the main protagonist, was sanctioned by the Pope and by the King of Spain. And it has a lot of twists and turns. It has battle scenes. It has sex. It has godlike creatures. It has a little historical value. So if you're interested in that, this is an indie publication. I will put the link down below. But great book. I mean, it just kind of wraps your mind around what could have been during that time period, which is kind of cool. So go ahead, take a look at that one. Killer Crow, another historical event. This is the saga of Liver-Eating Johnson. This is a great book. This is historical. All right. Now, again, these are all by eyewitnesses' accounts. It's not a very heavy book or a thick book to read, but this book is great. I think Raymond W. Trope and Robert Buckner, A New Introduction by Nathan Bender. All right. Jeremiah Johnson, all right, is the person that they're talking about where he became a mountain man. He left the Navy. He was in the Navy for a little bit, got into an argument with one of his officers. I think something happened, and then he left and never came back. He wanted to be a mountain man, moved out to the Colorado area, and just amazing stories. He finds an Indian wife, but the Crows find her. She's unguarded. They beat her, they rape her, they kill her, and then also Johnson finds out that there's also a baby inside her. So while he's off on his hunting trip and scouting trip, he comes back to find a dead wife and baby. So it sets him off on a path of destruction where he has literally take a vendetta and vengeance out on the Crows, where he winds up eating their livers. So this way the Crows know that it was him. So it's pretty brutal, but it's factual. All right. So any story that, again, eyewitness accounts by all the other mountain men. There's a whole bunch of mountain men in here. If you like the Westerns or the original mountain men type stories, this is definitely a book to pick up. Fantastic book. I highly recommend it. All right. Now we're going to talk about The King. All the Kings that I've been reading. Obviously, I've been into a little bit of The King. When I first started reading Stephen King, I was very young. I didn't understand all his stuff, but it worked out really great. First Stephen King book I read was The Eye of the Dragon. So it was like a fantasy. It was one of his first Final Fantasies, so it wasn't bad. But now that I'm older, I kind of appreciate more of his works. So the first book I wanted to jump back up on was Billy Summers. Billy Summers is a former Marine sniper. That's what I used to do in the Marine Corps. And he is now a contract killer. Once he gets out of the Marine Corps, he works with his mob boss. His mob boss does him dirty. But the person that hired the mob boss to hire Billy Summers, he wants everybody wiped out. Billy finds out about this. He goes back and pays specific revenge on the people that double-crossed him, and also finds out who the person is that he wanted to get killed, who the person is that the contract came out on. So very good crime type of stuff. Along the way, he meets this female that gets thrown from a van, and she's been raped and drugged, and he winds up taking care of her while he's on his hideout. And they have a relationship, and it's just a crazy twist in the whole book. Really good. It kind of reminds me of that movie, The Professional, if you know, with Natalie Portman. Go ahead and take a look at that as well. But great book overall. And again, it says the #1 Times bestseller. It's Stephen King. He's always going to sell out his books. But back to the King. Excellent book. If you like drama, if you like on the run or adventure type stories, that kind of thing, you know, In the Mind of a Contract Killer. All right. Fantastic book. 3 novellas that I already read by Stephen King. Elevation. Again, this is a kind of book. It's about a guy that, for whatever reason, it doesn't explain who or how or why, he starts losing weight or gets lighter internally, but his overall appearance looks exactly the same. So no matter what he does to eat to gain weight, he still looks the same. He also has these 2 neighbors that are lesbians. One of them's a little bit angrier, and they get into this whole big drama thing where the 2 lesbians own a diner or a restaurant, and he's trying to make friends with them before he completely goes down to 0 weight. And at the end, they become really good friends. I think it's of an acceptance type of novella. All right, just accept people for who they are, try not to judge kind of thing. But I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't think it was one of his best performances. It just, again, it's a novella. It's a small clip, so no big deal. 1922, again, a small novella. Great book. They also made a Netflix series out of it. It's about a farmer whose wife also inherited a bunch of farmland, and he wants to maintain his farmland. But they have a son, and the son winds up falling in love with the girl next door, and it turns to crap because the wife just wants to sell the land or the property and make money and move into the city. The farmer does not. He wants to do the old style, the old school thing, and he's constantly getting pressured by the banks or the people that want to buy the property. And then finally he winds up killing his wife, and then of course gets haunted by her. So it's pretty wild. The Netflix series did a pretty good job out of it, and I would definitely pick this up. All right, The Mist. The Mist is not new. The Mist, another novella, pretty decent book. The Mist has to do with the main protagonist has to go to the store because there is a storm or a big fog or a mist that comes into town and blows out all the power, and nobody has any power and nobody has any supplies. So everybody winds up in the supermarket. The supermarket becomes the quote unquote safe haven, and they have to lock all the doors and bar all the doors because whatever's in the mist is killing people. Now, again, most of you guys have probably already seen this. On another movie. I think this was made into a movie, which was pretty good. And again, there's a lot of trials and tribulations with people that get together. There's also a Lord of the Flies kind of deal going on with one of the people that goes crazy in there. She tries to get people to stop other people. It's just a nightmare of all human deficiencies, I should say. But at the end, he winds up getting out and trying to take the people, his clan with him or his people with him, and the military is nowhere to be found. The movie has a different ending than the book, but I would recommend it if you're into a small read, something that absolutely is sci-fi-esque with the monsters in the mist kind of thing. So take a look at that if you're interested. All right, and lastly, Stephen King, It. I'm not even done with this. recommendation from one of my viewers. This is a very, very large book. I think it's over 1,000 pages, already on chapter 15, but a fantastic book so far. I'm going to finish it before Halloween. That is my main goal. It happens in the town of Derry. Derry is a haunted area. Of course, nobody knows this, but as growing up, it is the clown Pennywise, and ideally Pennywise is a ghost or a spirit that likes to take children. They take their soul. He haunts them, and he can take the shape of any of their fears. So whatever fears they have, he could turn into that. He draws them in, and then of course he kills them. He feeds on them. He leaves their bodies. The town of Derry kind of knows about it, but they don't really want to talk about it. And there's seven survivors that were children that wind up beating it. And then wind up leaving. And when they leave, they become successful people. All right. So these seven children grow up, and they all have success as far as their own. They all wind up being very successful, and they make a lot of money. But Mike, who is one of the main protagonists, stays in Derry, and they made a pact when they were children that if the killings start, because it comes around every 27 years. If the killings start, that all of them will come back and try to kill it, whatever it is. So I'm at the part where everybody had returned except for one, and I don't want to spoil that for you. And they are going through their emotional reconnections and remembering of what happened when they were children. They're reminiscing, they're going to different sites, and there's a lot of flashbacks within the book when they were children and their relationships and how they all met each other. So that's going on right now. And again, they're going to come up with a plan because now they're in their 40s to try to kill it. So fantastic book. I think Stephen King allegedly said that he was doing a lot of drugs when he wrote this book. It kind of makes sense because the backstory on this book, you could probably start at chapter 10, which is almost 400 pages in, and get the same amount of information, all right, because there's so much back and forth. That's one of the negatives, is that this book does not really need to be this long, but again, it gives you such tremendous character reference on why these characters, these seven guys and one girl that escaped Derry and escaped it, are now coming back. They all already moved on and had other families and stuff, but they all get drawn right back to Derry, reminisce the horrors and the misery of everything that it kind of does in Derry. And again, he's always after children. So pretty wild ride. I'm probably going to finish this by October 30th. I hope I can. I think I'm on chapter 14. So I think I got about that much left, which ideally I can finish. So really good book. Again, Stephen King is the master of horror. And although I watched the movie, I want to ensure that I read the book as well. All right, guys, thank you very much. I hope you appreciated this video. I'll put the links to all of these down below if you're really interested in it. Again, I really need you guys to like and subscribe. Please subscribe. Hit that bell icon with the little parentheses around it. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before Christmas, and if we can do that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. If there's anything that you read here or disagree with or want to talk about, put it down in the comments below. And as always, keep reading.